I'm going to make some people upset with this video. You know what? I actually don't care. Here we go again. Okay. I gotta say, I never thought we'd be back here so soon. Final Fantasy XIV. I really haven't talked about it in a while. I have in the past talked about some of the issues and drama, and we did some previous videos talking about Final Fantasy XIV, especially when I was heavily into it. These days, I'm just doing MSQ on the sidelines watching events like the recently released Ultimate Omega Protocol, which just came out. Been out about a week now. Ultimates are always very, very fun to watch. The hardest content that Square Enix releases for Final Fantasy XIV. The best of the best get together and try to kill a gauntlet of bosses over a period of time. They take time off work, and it's usually very, very challenging content and very fun to watch. And I look forward to it every time it comes out. It's one of my favorite events with Final Fantasy XIV. So the lowdown, what's going on? This is the TLDR for those of you who can't watch the whole video, although I hope you do. Somebody killed the boss. They killed the whole boss. They did the whole raid. They completed it. Some videos came out which showed them doing some questionable activity that is not possible to do in the client without some sort of a third-party add-on. You may or may not know, but third-party add-ons, plugins, are strictly prohibited by Square Enix, and it's a bannable offense. After those videos came out, the community stirred up an uproar, a lot of controversy, and lots of drama. The surprising part is that this was a Japanese group, and the Japanese culture and the Japanese stereotype, if you will, is that this is kind of a dishonorable thing to do. Only those filthy Americans will do that. I'm just joking. But the stigma is that it's a dishonorable thing to do, and it's a Japanese group. So it's probably going to sting a little bit more from Japanese developers because it's a cultural kind of a taboo thing to do. That's the TLDR. A group completed the ultimate. Said group got caught using third-party add-ons. Community reacts. That's what I'm here to talk about to you today. I'm here to talk about just the aftermath of everything that's going on and why we should be concerned. I think an agreement with everybody in the community is that this should be punishable. This is a wrong thing because it is clearly against the terms of service. There's no ambiguity about that. Square has made it clear. There's no vagueness about it. Even though some people want to, move the line back and forth. Oh, this is a third party. What's a third party? What's a third party? No, those are middle school games that adults and mature people don't even consider. We know what happened. They got caught. No other words. No ifs, ands, buts about it. I think some of the disagreement that I've been seeing, and then we'll talk about how I feel in a bit. But some of the disagreement I've been seeing in the various posts is that some people, namely the actual raiders that are vocal about this, they're like saying, why are you surprised? This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Everybody uses third-party add-ons who does world races. That's kind of like the sentiment. That's kind of like the rebuttal from a lot of raiders. And then you got a lot of the community members, some of the viewers, even some people who raid themselves were like, so you got caught, you get banned. It's as simple as that. Why are you condoning cheating? That's kind of the message there. I honestly don't know how we got here. It's very, very surprising to me that we're back in the same exact situation we were in after the last Ultimate of Dragon Song Reprise. Not too long ago. It wasn't that long ago. The exact same thing happened. People were actually using the third-party add-ons while streaming. Got reported. Got mass reported. People got banned. It was a big stink then. People were like, everybody uses them. What's the big deal? What's this? Square Enix had to come out again and say, use of third-party apps. You can't use them. We have to ban them. Policy's not changing. Don't do it. So this time around, from the streamer standpoint, it kind of cleaned up. Nobody really, after that happened, after that whole incident happened, it was very, very hard to find people consistently running third-party add-ons on Twitch. People were still doing it, obviously, but especially during like Savage Races and events like Ultimate, nobody was running. You wouldn't see parsers, you wouldn't see any kind of chat bubbles, anything to denote that a third-party add-on is being used. So it's really surprising that we're seeing this again so soon with this Ultimate. Now, granted, the video footage that came out wasn't a live stream. It wasn't footage of a live stream. It was actually something that wasn't supposed to be released. And there's a lot of chatter about how this came to be. Some people theorized that there were some internal conflicts and people got mad that they didn't get their clear. Some of the people on the bench didn't get their clear. Release this footage somehow. It's all speculation as far as I'm concerned. I think it's safe to say that this footage wasn't supposed to be released. It wasn't supposed to be released, and it was. The problem is out there now. Everybody knows. So all this happened. People have been world racing for almost 6-7 days when this came out. 12-hour days. People are exhausted, mentally drained, because this is a very, very hard fight. Arguably harder than Dragon Song Reprise, which people said was very, very difficult. So this is actually arguably harder. Yoshi P came out with a post, and I'm going to talk about the post and give my thoughts on it. And then we'll talk a little bit more about how I feel. It's called Regarding Illicit Activities in the Omega Protocol Ultimate. Or we call it TOP, because we like to abbreviate things. Hello, this is Naoki Yoshida, producer and director of Final Fantasy XIV. Daddy's home. Following the release of the Omega Protocol Ultimate with patch 6.31, there has unfortunately been information concerning instances of unfair play identified within the community. Yeah, that's putting it lightly. We are aware of information that is being spread regarding the use of third-party tools within TOP. We are conducting an investigation on the matter, including reviews of reports that we have received, as well as self-confessions and other information. Here's the big one. In the event that we confirm the use of third-party tools through this investigation, we will enact penalties, such as temporary account suspension or permanent account bans to those involved. You had to see it coming. If there's anything that Square does, is that they are consistent. They are inconsistent with this, but they are consistent with highly publicized incidents of TOS breaking, if you will, breaking the TOS. If it's highly publicized, they take swift and harsh action. They don't mess around. This is why the sentiment among the community, if you talk to people and you have conversations, it's like, if you don't tell people you use mods, nothing generally will happen, because Square doesn't check your client. They don't check your PC. They don't scan your PC to see if you're running mods. The funny part about it, and what everybody, kind of, laughs about, is that the people that get caught either are doing it on video, which we saw here, live stream or YouTube, or they are in the game chat screaming at people, telling them to do more damage because they have their damage on the screen using the third-party app. So if you don't do either one of those things, generally nothing will happen, as history has proven. That may change. I think Daddy Yoshida's had it. That may change, which is not good news for Final Fantasy XIV players, because that means more checks and balances, more anti-cheat stuff, which usually makes for a much worse experience in the game. Not surprising. Now let's talk a little bit more about it. Regarding the prohibited use of third-party tools. As I have mentioned previously, the terms of service, which I call the TOS, for Final Fantasy XIV state that the use of third-party tools is strictly prohibited. This has always been the case and will continue to be so. And unless announced otherwise, there are no plans to enact any changes. Pretty clear. I've come across posts from individuals saying things along the lines of, hey, Yoshida allows the use of third-party tools, so it's fine to use them. However, let me make it clear that I have never permitted the use of these tools. So people will probably link you to a video of Yoshida saying that they just don't want you to be toxic. He talks about the spirit of the rule and how some third-party tools are akin to using a calculator or a spreadsheet. They just calculate numbers, so they're not giving you an advantage, and they're generally not that bad. But he always clarifies this. He says, but we as a company at Square Enix, we have to ban them all. We can't pick and choose which ones we can ban, because if you've ever done this, if you've ever been a part of a company that has had to deal with security or rule sets or anything like that, you can't specify specific things that are banned, because the bad actors will specifically work around those things. So I know a lot of people, they always scream, well, why don't you just tell us what we can't use? It's not that simple. It never is that simple. If you think it's that simple, then you probably need to look it up and talk to people who have done this. It's the same with setting like a terms of service for a service, even like Twitch or YouTube. There's only so many specific things you can tell people not to do without them trying to dig through and find gray areas to get around it. Also, from a security security standpoint, it's also a good way to cover your bases. If someone does do something detrimental and they say, oh, it wasn't in a TOS that I couldn't use this because you didn't specifically say I could use this Wireshark to capture packets and to do this and to do that. You didn't specifically say that. So they have to be general and they have to be broad, and interpretation of those rules are generally left to SE and their GMs and et cetera, et cetera. That's generally the safest way to do it from a company's perspective and from your perspective, because in essence, if you do go through specific items, you're going to constantly have to keep updating your terms. You're going to constantly keep bugging us to keep reading them and re-accepting them. And it's like a new tool comes out, we're going to add that to the TOS. A new tool comes out, we're going to add that to the TOS. It's not very sustainable to go along with that kind of a business. I hope I made that clear. I see a lot of people saying that, and having worked in this industry in that kind of a field, I can tell you it's not easy to specify things without going through a lot of problems. So Square takes the stance of no third-party tools. If you're caught using them and we deem that a punishment is sufficient or required, a punishment will be issued. It's a clear policy. Even in this post, they talk about previous times where they've talked about this. They've talked about it on a live letter. They've done posts about it. You know, with Dragon Song, they've talked about even before that. This is not the first time this has come up, which is probably the part that bugs me the most, is that it kind of reminds me with Twitch and DMCA. You know, after DMCApocalpyse 1, okay, shocker, don't play copyrighted music on your stream. After DMCApocalpyse 2, okay, why are you guys still playing copyrighted music? Okay, DMCApocalpyse number 3, what are you guys thinking? At some point, people have to get it through their minds that these rules will be enforced, despite what Joe Schmo says about, oh, they're not going to enforce it. They generally won't do anything because it didn't happen to my cousin Susan or my buddy Bob. You know, you've got to be careful with this stuff, because when it is enforced, guess who's going to be the example that's going to be shown to everybody? It's going to be you. It's pretty simple, man. Don't use third-party tools. Even if you decide to break the rules, because let's be clear, this is breaking the rules. There's nothing right about this. If you decide to break the rules, don't be telling everybody about it. Why are you telling everybody you wouldn't rob the bank? Why'd you tell everybody you wouldn't did tax fraud? Why'd you tell everybody you did this, you did that? If you're going to break the rules, keep your mouth shut. And if you ask me, just don't break the rules, man. Just don't use the third-party tools. I know people are like, but Bwana, I want my chat bubbles. Well, you can't have them. But Bwana, I want my logs. I want my parsers. You can't have them. Not without consequence. These are life lessons, people. There's always consequences for your action. You can justify them all you want, but you have to accept the consequences. You have to. Okay, Daddy Bwana is going to sit down for a second. All right, we're going to go back to the blog post. It says, in closing, it is extremely disappointing for me to personally see this commotion surrounding third-party tools once again in the wake of what happened with Dragon Song's Reprise, which I call DSR. That's exactly what I just said not too long ago, man. How are we here again? How are we here again? And then he goes on to say, this is especially unfortunate when I, as a gamer, am cheering on everyone who is learning this content by trial and error and putting in the effort to clear. He's saying he's not only behind the game and making the game, he's also a player and a fan of the game. And it's like a double whammy disappointment. It's like, oh my gosh, man, you just ruined the race. We had this great race going on with arguably one of the hardest fights ever made, and you had to ruin it. Goes on to say, we hear the community voice that an official race should be supported and regulations should be decided upon. This is a topic which needs to be discussed internally, so please allow me to keep this as an item for future consideration. Yes. Yoshi goes on to say that the raid can be cleared without the use of third-party tools. They test them internally. They do the raid themselves without anything helping them. They don't have any dev hacks. They're doing the raid to ensure that people can do them. And this was an argument that people, when they were talking about Final Fantasy versus WoW a lot, like many years ago, how Final Fantasy devs actually play their game to make sure that you can do it instead of just crunching numbers and doing automated unit tests on certain parts. And then all of a sudden, when people get the actual content, they find out they can't do anything or there's a bug here. And people are like, well, if you actually did the fight, you would have found this. So they actually test the fights and they complete the fights without any third-party tools. However, if the presumption is that the content will be tackled and cleared with the use of third-party tools, then any reason to develop high-level battle or high-difficulty battle content seems to be lost. That in itself is an innuendo to something you don't want. I interpreted this as, if you guys think that you can't do this without third-party tools, then we're not doing our job. As developers, if the content requires a third-party tool that you can't complete it without, with the tools that we give you, then we're doing this wrong and we might as well stop. That's my interpretation. Is like, I think that they're taking the onus that something that they're doing is wrong if you need third-party tools. And if it is, they need to reevaluate that. And that can include not doing any more of high-level content of this caliber. I'm not saying they're going to get rid of Savage or they're going to get rid of Ultimates completely, but to reevaluate everything, say, should we be doing this? That's the first step in stuff getting canned. If the illicit use of third-party tools is made clear through our investigations, I, at the very least, will not recognize that team as a world first. Oof, Daddy is mad. He's mad. In a follow-up story, in a post on the Reddit thread, the ninja of the group of the name of the group unnamed got contacted by a GM explaining their penalty. Since they were not the direct responsible player who used third-party tools, their account will not receive any penalty. However, since they did benefit from usage of such tools, their clear will be revoked altogether. They are wiping the clear from the game database, meaning that the achievement and title will be removed in a few days. And the GM asked him to destroy his ultimate weapon once he left GM jail. When I say things got ugly, when things get ugly here, they get ugly, man. It's the situation here is not good for Final Fantasy XIV and its players. This is I don't know how many times this has come up in total, but in terms of like blowing up to be pretty big, this is the second time that this has made like almost like international gaming news about this controversy around the hardest raid in the game, which, draws a lot of attention. The charity that Frosty runs over at Mog Talk, behind the world first race and stuff like that, broke records and it was like a huge success, had a lot of eyes and ears on it. It was, from my mind, it was a huge thing. And this is going to taint it forever. This is going to be forever the taint on this world race. And it's kind of sad. And I can only hope that Yoshi P and crew actually do provide some sort of a consulting with Frosty to do an officially sanctioned world race. I know that's going to be extra work that Yoshi P probably doesn't have time for, but I hope that they consider it for future Ultimates. Maybe not next Ultimate, but maybe the Ultimate after that, an official race or something like that. So what does Bwana think? I've been talking about everybody else and what everybody else has been saying, and I've been kind of throwing my little quirks here and there. But what do I think? Well, if you know me for at least half a second, you know that I don't condone cheating, and I'm very strict about it. If you get caught cheating, you should definitely serve it with the consequence. Given that my culture is American, I'm a Floridian, I am Florida man with beard, I can't really relate to the Japanese culture. I can try to relate. I can kind of just watch, and listen what they say. But the Japanese culture is very different from American culture. They take these things a little bit differently than we do. When you're publicly humiliated in Japanese culture, it's a little bit more serious than it is here. So as far as the reaction that the players had, because I don't think I said this, but the initial reaction from Team Unnamed on Twitter and in other outlets was that they were going to basically delete their accounts or quit the game altogether. That was their reaction, is that they were just basically going to just nuke their accounts. And that's probably thousands of hours of work gone. So it's not a small thing to do that. I know some people are like, all right, it's just a game character. What are you talking about? Gamers are like, do you understand what they're doing right now? It's a big deal from a gamer perspective. So as an American, I have a different take on this, a different look, than they do. And I can't really relate to that. So I defer to them. I can't really comment on their reaction. But the general consensus among the Final Fantasy XIV crowd, and specifically when people say everybody is cheating, therefore it's okay, it sounds like a scuffed after-school special. It really does. It's a sick and twisted justification for getting caught. And it's kind of a loud outcry of your insecurity of what you're doing in terms of cheating. If you sit there, you condone cheating, it tells me a lot about what you think about cheating in general. I mean, that's not a stretch. That's not a big assumption. If you sit there and defend cheating, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be okay with cheating. And you can take it even a step further, is that you probably do a lot of cheating. If you're going to sit there and say, well, everybody does it, they really shouldn't. This is too much. You sit there and you try to justify it simply because your perspective. I'm not going to say it actually is, because nobody has proof, but your perspective is that everybody's doing it. All the top groups are doing it. That's your perspective, right? Without any proof, that's your perspective. It's really not. It's not a complicated thing. It's not a complicated thing that we're looking at here. It's not something that you should probably struggle to deal with. If you don't use the third-party tools, none of this reaction, none of this doubt, none of this will happen. I even heard a couple streamers talking about how they're upset that everybody's going to be questioning the results now. Everybody's going to be looking at everything, and they're going to be second guessing everything. Everybody's going to be, oh man, did you clear it? But everybody's going to, the first thing they're going to ask is, did you cheat? If you cleared it first, it's like, well, did you stream it? They're like, why? How did we get here? How did we get here? If you wouldn't have used the third-party tools, none of this would have happened. That's not debatable. That's not debatable at all. That's actually factual. If you had not used third-party tools, none of this will happen. So the fault lies on you. These are the consequences. These are the repercussions. All your accomplishments are in doubt. I mean, when a world-class athlete is caught doping, all of their previous accomplishments are in question for a reason. If someone is competing in something and they've been found to cheat, guess what? Everybody's going to look at you and go, well, that's the consequence of that action. So when you choose to try to get an edge, whether it be steroids or some sort of a athletic enhancer, if you try to get some sort of an advantage and you get caught, these are the breaks. This is what's going to happen. I have compassion for people who are going through this, because I know the type of work they're putting in. I'm no way saying that the cheats are, I guess I should word it like this. If they wouldn't have had the cheats, they wouldn't have done it. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that you tried to get the best competitive advantage you could by breaking the rules, and you got caught. Therefore, you must deal with the consequences. Now, the severity of the consequence, like I said, there's Japanese culture, there's American culture, there's Square Enix and how they do things. To me, that's irrelevant of what I'm saying right now. Is that you have to deal with consequences. It's a life lesson. I mean, it's something you should have been taught in grade school. I don't know if it's still taught, but you should have been taught this in grade school. Break the rules, you get the consequence. Oh man. And we're talking about video games, man. We're talking about video games. But we're actually talking about time. We're talking about a huge time investment. Time to a lot of people is precious. Whether it be in a video game, whether it be in a hobby, whether it be at your job, whether it be with your family, this is time. So it's precious to people. And when you take a week off of work or whatever you're doing to do this, and then it's all nullified by a stupid mistake, it's going to sting and it's going to hurt. Guys, if you do raid in Final Fantasy XIV, please don't use third-party tools. You don't need them. You don't need them. You don't. It's been proven you don't need them. You've convinced yourself that you need them to compete because you are saying other people use them, which again, that's an insecure outcry of, well, I need to justify my actions because they're wrong. Well, Jimmy stole the candy too. Oh, I'm going to make some people upset with this video. You know what? I actually don't care. These things need to be said. They need to be screamed out the rooftop. That people need to be responsible and accountable for their actions, which is this is something that's not, to me, not said enough. And I'm glad to say it. Talk so much that my camera overheated. Oh boy. So guys, for real, I hope that this is the last time this happens at this scale. I think people are still going to be banned for using third-party tools, of course, and people are going to be ridiculed for doing progression off stream as a byproduct of this. And again, we got nobody to blame but the community for putting us in this situation. It's like I said, in any competitive environment, when the integrity of the participant is put in question, then questions are going to be asked, and now questions are going to be asked because of the integrity of the participants. That's where we are now. I think future progressions are definitely going to be meme worthy. They're going to be ridiculed, and that's where we are. You can blame whoever you want, but that's the situation that we're in. So hopefully it won't happen at this scale again. I don't know. I don't think people have learned their lesson. I really think they're already thinking about like how are they going to do it next Ultimate. Like, oh, I'm going to run these tools, but we're going to make sure that we don't have videos, and we're going to make sure of this. And, you know, they're already protecting themselves. I don't think people have learned from this. I don't think they are going to learn until it happens to them, sadly. And I really hope Yoshi P does do. I hope Square Enix does back an official race. That would be amazing. I would look forward to that. Like I said, this is my primary form of Final Fantasy XIV consumption right now. I come back every now and then for the MSQ, but I absolutely love watching these races. So we'll keep our eye on this. We'll be watching this, and if something else comes up, we'll talk about it then. But thanks so much, guys, for listening and watching this video. Thanks for being here all this time. This was a doozy. But, man, all you can do is laugh. All you can do is laugh. It's crazy. I want to say thank you to all my supporters, all my members on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for guys. Thank you so much, guys, for your support. Also, I want to thank my patrons at patreon.com/Bwana. If you support me on my social medias by even following or clicking like buttons like you do here, or if you subscribe on Twitch, or if you even give me a tip anytime, I really appreciate that. If you bought any of my merch over at shop.bwana.tv, that is a huge, huge help. So thank you so much for everybody who has done so that kind of stuff. And yeah, this thing is behind me, but we do have merch, and it is really, really good. I am very proud of it. Very proud of how it came out. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all next time, and have a good day, and don't cheat. Bye.